Also, we have, again, I don't even know what you would call this, a partying in the bus subway system. It's odd to me, but there's people twerking, drinking on public transportation in New York. This is what happens. Again, this is what happens when you let Democrats run the show. Let's roll it. I'm going to bring it down because that's just annoying music. I would like to point out that this is acceptable in Democrat ran areas. That this is all acceptable, but I guarantee you, if you try to click on this video right now, it's going to at some point have an 18 years old or older flag, or that it's inappropriate or something like that, inappropriate for young viewers. But this is the stuff that they're doing in public on the subway system, drinking, twerking, wearing thongs, grinding up on each other, doing all these things. I don't know if this is for a music video because there's cameras around. I don't know what is going on, but there's some crazy stuff happening in, I mean, there's a midget there or a small person. I don't know what we can refer to them as, a dwarf. I mean, again, the language always changes. You just had a chick twerking a dog. I mean, this is wild. And you don't even know what's real and what isn't anymore. That's the thing. Is our social media has gone so insane that I can't tell if they're doing a music video because that's gotten so grungy, or if this is actually just happening in real life because it does happen in real life. I can't tell anymore between reality and just make-believe creators going out there filming stuff anymore, but it's happening in leftist ran areas. I can't remember the last time I've seen something. Well, I've never seen something like this, but just things that we're seeing with the twerking, the drag shows, you know, the gender indoctrination. I can't recall, at least at the top of my head, I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but something like that happening in a conservative ran area, a Republican ran area, a red area. It's all happening. The crime is primarily happening, at least in large numbers, in leftist ran areas. The drag shows are, the indoctrination, the pride, all this stuff is happening in Democrat ran areas, and they just don't see it. They don't see it. I can't believe that people are still blind to all of it. That's the mind-blowing thing. Either they're awakened to it, they don't want to admit it and lie to themselves, that they just don't see it. They watch it, but they're like, oh, well, it's fine to me. It's not impacting me. I'm going to continue to vote Democrat. You know, there's not crime in my neighborhood. I'm still good with it. I don't know. There's so many reasons as to why I guess somebody would still vote for a Democrat. I'm bewildered. By the way, at a young age, I was a Democrat myself. My father is the one that helped me transition into conservatism, into being a Republican. If it wasn't for him, I would have been a Democrat and not have woken myself either. So maybe in a nutshell, some part of me gets it. In our last news story of the day, the United States is expected to lag other advanced economies in growth. Gee, I wonder why. Probably because you got a dollar in office that can't read from a teleprompter, that falls off his bike sitting stationary, that hits a golf ball backwards, falls asleep during major meetings, goes to Saudi Arabia, fist bumps the Saudis, doesn't get anything in return, doesn't get any oil, tells us he wants to have more domestic oil production, while at the same time he says he wants to get rid of all fossil fuels, have a zero carbon footprint, and push this electric vehicle hubbub. So the International Monetary Fund, IMF, expects much lower global economic growth. According to World Economic Outlook report released on Tuesday, the worldwide economy is expected to grow 3.2% in 2020 and 2.9% in 2023, which mark respective 0.4% and 0.7% downward revisions from the International Financial Institution's April forecast, according to the report. Quote, the risks of the outlook are overwhelmingly tilted to the downside, the IMF explained. Among other factors, the group cites supply chain issues, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, debt distress in emerging markets, renewed COVID lockdowns, and persistent inflationary pressures. Why is that quote so important? It's because there's all these things going on, but you have Joe Biden going out there and basically telling and demanding oil companies to start drilling more. But if you have supply chain issues, which is going to impact drilling as well, you have obviously the Russian invasion going on. One thing that's not listed is China's still basically in a lockdown itself and hasn't actually come back full-fledged into the global market, which is going to affect fuel prices as well. It does say you have distress in emerging markets, renewed COVID lockdowns, and persistent inflationary pressures. But if you're going to have renewed COVID lockdowns, why would you go take millions of dollars in investments, get your drilling permits and the contracts, everything that you need, start drilling when there's a volatile market that could still lead to more COVID lockdowns, which you'd have billions of dollars in losses once again
of which they just had during the COVID lockdowns. So Joe Biden's going to keep pushing this whole thing when you have economists, you have the international financial institutions showing data that's in a downward spiral, but he wants all these crazy things, including windmills, wind turbines in the Gulf. But he's going to shell out billions of dollars for that, throw billions of dollars at Ukraine while we're like $20+ trillion in debt. Just all makes sense, doesn't it? It's just, I feel like we live in the upside down in Stranger Things. Quote, with increasing prices continuing to squeeze living standards worldwide, taming inflation should be the first priority for policymakers. The report said, tighter monetary policy will inevitably have real economic costs, but delay will only exacerbate them. Targeted fiscal support can help cushion the impact on the most vulnerable. But with government budgets stretched by the pandemic and the need for deflationary overall macroeconomic policy stance, such policies will need to be offset by increased taxes or lowering government spending, which isn't going to happen. One, you have Democrats in office. Do you think they want to lower taxes at all? No. They want to increase taxes. But the main point that I want to make, lower government spending, really? And this goes for both Republicans and Democrats. They ain't going to lower any sort of government spending. They're always blowing out the budget. I mean, literally, during COVID, you had spending more money than literally every single president in U.S. history. So they're not going to lower the government spending. They always want to increase government spending. It is wild on how much our government doesn't care about a budget, doesn't care about any of those things. Why do we have a budget in the first place? I mean, we go through line item after line item and all these things, and they just blow it out anyways. They could just print all the money they want. And then when inflation skyrockets, they're always looking around going, oh, I haven't. I can't believe that happened. Well, whose fault's it going to be? Who can we blame it on? Let's blame it on Putin. Oh, crap. But they're not really believing the Putin thing. Oh, let's blame it on the oil companies. Oh, they're not really blaming it on the oil companies. Oh, let's blame it on the gas stations. Oh, they're not really holding on to that. It's all my fault. Like, they're always baffled when inflation goes through the roof after they just got done pumping the economy full of money. And then you have California, and I've mentioned this before. California wants to give out more stimulus checks and are going to help curb inflation, to help curb the idea that there's inflation with fuel prices. You can't make this idiocracy up. The guy that wants to help curb inflation by pumping California with more money is possibly going to make a 2024 presidential run. Why is it only idiots run for office? Honestly, I don't get it. Citing significantly less momentum in private consumption, in part reflecting the erosion of household purchasing power and the expected impact of a steeper tightening in monetary policy, the IMF cut growth forecast for the United States to 2.3 in 2022 and 1% in 2023, downward revisions of 1.4% and 1.3% from the April estimates. So it's never a good sign when you have an estimate and then you basically do worse than the estimate, because sometimes there's a grace period, or at least a portion of grace within those estimates. Are like, hey, you know what? Let's just kind of like fix the number just a little bit in favor so that if things were to get worse, that it doesn't look as bad, but it still looks terrible because numbers are just going down, not just in the United States, but on a global level as well. The United States is therefore expected to recover more slowly through 2023 than the average advanced economy, while China, folks, is slated to grow at 3.3% and 4.6%. I am laughing because this is what you get. Remember when Joe Biden looked at Donald Trump? He said, hey, Donald, China's going to eat your lunch, man. No, it looks like China's going to eat your lunch, Biden, because they're doing better than we are. So they create this virus in the Wuhan lab. Nobody penalizes China. I am still waiting for China to get in trouble for this. For the love of God, everybody's always citing the UN and all these things and, blah, 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 regarding the globe and human rights violations and all these things. Where is anybody talking about China? It's been 2 years now, and we're still waiting for this thing to happen with China getting penalized in some way, shape, or form regarding this, but now they're doing better than us. They create this virus that kills a ton of people, shuts down the entire world, the entire planet, and now they're doing better than basically everybody else. Go figure. Isn't that amazing? Leave it up to Joe Biden to not do a damn thing with China. And we all know why. We all know why he's not doing anything. Because China probably has some baggage on him regarding the Hunter Biden deals. There's probably something there. But again, Democrats don't want to look under the hood. They want to focus on this January 6th debacle. There's nothing there. And it's amazing. I've always told you guys, I really do read the comments. I have an app on my phone. I just swipe and I read them. I'll try to comment when I can. But it's like the comments on this January 6th thing coming from Democrats that are watching the show, put it in there. It's just mind-blowing. It's stupid. They actually think this guy's going to get prosecuted. They think Eric Garland's really going to prosecute Donald Trump based on what's happened. The guy doesn't have anything. He's not going to do it. It's like that whole idea that you saw Republicans holding on that Donald Trump's going to be back in office during Joe Biden's term. It's fantasy land, folks. Some of these people need to wake up and realize that smell the roses, that certain things just aren't plausible. It's not going to happen. It's a theater show. It's all for show for the Democrats. They have nothing to run on November. Literally not a single thing to run on. This is all they have. It's like a last-ditch effort to save themselves so that things won't be as bad in November. That's why they're drawing this out. They got nothing on the guy. You didn't have anything with the Russia collusion whole aspect, the witch hunts. They got nothing on this once again. Just wasting more taxpayer dollars is really where it's at. Citing significantly less momentum in private consumption. That's going to be happening not just in 2022, but again in 2023. Quote, further supply-related shocks to food and energy prices from the war in Ukraine. Again, with this war in Ukraine thing, could sharply increase headline inflation and pass through the core inflation, triggering a further tightening in monetary policy. Labor market tightness is historically high in several economies, and workers could increasingly demand compensation for past increases in the cost of living. The dismal report comes ahead of the Bureau of Economic Analysis pushing an advanced estimate of second quarter gross domestic product growth later this week. Again, we said that the economy shrank 1.6% annualized in April to June. Because the economy likewise contracted in a 1.5% rate in the first quarter, the United States may have experienced 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, meeting the rule of thumb for a recession. But again, this is just a slow transition of growth phase, according to the Treasury Secretary. It's not an actual recession. They literally, the White House literally redefined what a recession was because of how bad things have gotten, that they don't want to admit it, because it's just another thing to put on the list in terms of Joe Biden running this country into the ground. So if they could just redefine things, which they've done, right, with male and female, biological sex, gender, they just continually redefine things to fit their narrative, and everybody goes along with it. And so now we got to deal with the language aspect of everything. So they're just going to go along with their narrative of redefining things by redefining the recession. I'm telling you, it is such a dangerous game to play if you're constantly redefining things. You will fail as a country. At some point, America is going to fail if we continue down this path of redefining our language, redefining certain aspects to fit a narrative. It's going to fall down into the drain so quick. I hope I'm not around if it is going to happen at some point, which I do think it is. When you have elected officials that are sworn in to uphold the Constitution, but are going after freedom of speech and the Second Amendment. I was talking with my buddy. I just couldn't believe that Jerry Nadler, the Democrat Party, are so gung-ho on removing our Second Amendment rights to bear arms. Like, let that sink in for a little bit, that they're fighting us on the Bill of Rights. You think we're going to have a country at some point? You think there's going to be a civil war at some point? I think there truly is. When you have elected officials, politicians going after our rights, yeah, I think that we're heading in a very, very bad direction as a country. I know a lot of people don't want to admit it, but I'm not even saying it's happening in our lifetime, but we're clearly going in a downward trajectory in terms of our society, in terms of where we're at. And I do think at some point we will have a civil war here, because you're going to have politicians from the left. It's not going to be Republicans. You're going to have politicians from the left that are going to remove your rights. And you know what the left will say about Republicans? Oh, well, they're removing our rights to an abortion. They're removing women's rights. But they don't get through their thick skulls. Those rights never existed in the first place. At least the rights that we're talking about right now were actually created during the founding of this country. They've always been there. But you have Supreme Court justices in past cases wanting to literally say that they've made up rights, that they just found them. They literally just found them. It's not coming from me. It's not coming from Donald Trump. It's not coming from conservatives and Republicans. This is coming from the left. This is coming from the people that put that stuff in place back when Griswold v. Connecticut was being ruled on. So you can't say that, oh, we're moving your rights. The rights never existed. If you want that right, then put it in place. Put an amendment in there. But no, you don't want to go that route. You just want to shout and cry and scream to the skies. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.